Hello, you guys. So, here we're going to talk about hookup culture and why, despite the birth control and everything being told, sex is just a free for all and women like sex just as much as men, why are women still a little bit more reluctant to hook up the way that men do, especially emotionally healthy women? It's because sex is binary and our gametes are very different in terms of the risk and the investment. And our bodies are just storehouses for our gametes. So if you have in the plant world, if you have pollen, or in the human world, you have sperm, it's small, it's mobile, there's no risk in just spreading it anywhere. But if you have an egg, you're a female, there's a big risk in just having eggs. And these eggs are large, they're immobile, and there's a huge risk in making a poor choice. I can even just think about all the women I know who spent days in labor, not just the monthly menstruation, the risk of high risk pregnancies, the days in labor, how women would die in childbirth. They're not anymore, and we have birth control, but our bodies and our biology evolved over millions of years to be aware in our cells and everything of the greater risks we have. Carrying a baby, delivering a baby, nursing a baby, and being very helpless through a lot of it and feeling a lot more responsibility for that child, whereas the man can just spread his seed and walk off. So deep down, our eggs know this. And so in this first clip, we're going to look at an interview on Dad Saves America where Brett Weinstein and his wife Heather Heying, both evolutionary biologists, are being interviewed. So I'm going to play this first clip, and then I will be back on the other side.
Male and female are different not because somebody imposed these roles on people. It's because the different size of gametes implies a different obligation to invest in offspring, which changes the entire spectrum of how you should think about your hazards and opportunities. And the easiest way to see this is to understand that inside of a plant, many plants have both male and female parts in the same individual. In the case that a flower has male parts and female parts, they disagree over how to view sex with a stranger. The fact is, the female parts are very skeptical of sex with stranger plants, and the pollen parts are enthusiastic about it. That's not for any reason other than the basic asymmetry in those gametes says that this is a sensible way to look at the puzzle. And it has been that way, apparently, for hundreds of millions of years. This has nothing to do with people, nothing to do with oppression. This is just basic biology. And if you don't understand that, you're not even in a position to enter this conversation.
Let me just fill in. I think you said it, but I'm not sure it's totally clear. Like, why should the male parts be enthusiastic about any sexual opportunity that comes around and the female parts not so much? It goes back to that big difference in the size of the gametes, that each, in the case of plants, grain of pollen cell is a tiny investment. Send that pollen out to whatever shows up in terms of eggs, and it's not a big cost. If that egg turns out to be a rogue egg or the egg of a plant that's not a very good match, it's not very much of a cost. Whereas the egg, in deciding, we're speaking anthropomorphically here, but in deciding whether or not to accept any given pollen grain, that egg is, for a cell, gigantic. It's already a big investment on the part of the plant, and so eggs are more choosy about what pollen or sperm to accept for fertilization than pollen or sperm is. And that's the gametes. The bodies they're in, the same is true. And there are exceptions. There are sexual reverse species. There is polyandry out there where, there's multiple male mates for a single female, but those are the exceptions. The fundamental original inequality in investment in what the sex gametes are, it directly translates into what the basic strategies are male versus female.
And I would just point out that actually, if you follow this through, that in humans, we have software level adaptations, like, for example, monogamy, that change these basic parameters. When men and women are both investing long term in partnerships that last a lifetime, in children that they will know and take care of, they become symmetrical in how choosy they are, right? Now, so this allows you to see, are men choosy about mates? Well, they're very choosy when they're looking for a life partner. They're much less choosy when they're looking for something to do for the evening. So that's exactly as you would expect it, based on this underlying biology of the asymmetry in investment that goes all the way back to a difference in gamete size that has nothing to do with people at all.
I mean,
Okay, so what I really want to point out on this is that there's an asymmetrical risk and an inequality of investment in casual sex. The man has no risk and no investment. The woman takes a lot of risk and has a huge investment. And this is why, even though men are as valuable as women, when it comes to casual sex or sex, the woman is a lot more valuable because she's a lot more choosy. So the man has to be worthwhile for her to even be sexual with him. This is why hookup culture is so bad, especially for women. It's made men lazy. It's made men not have to do the things that they historically had to do to earn the woman, to get the woman. And because it turns out, though, as in the previous clip showed, that when it comes to monogamy and marriage, the man becomes just as choosy as the woman. I've talked about this in other videos. We have equal investment, symmetrical risk. So that's why, ladies, there is no benefit in you thinking that you're free and empowered fucking a guy for free. You should charge him. In terms of like a relationship or some kind of resources, because there's no benefit in just exposing your eggs to the risk of any kind of a sperm that can get there. Your eggs are very, very valuable. And that's why the criteria for fucking a guy should be, will this man make a good father? Will he be there for me if I get pregnant? Because the same men that you're fucking don't want to date you, don't want to marry you. And birth control aside, this is a free-for-all, whatever, it doesn't bring out our best behavior, because men are motivated throughout history to be at their best so that they can earn a woman as someone with an egg. And when women go around fucking like men, not only do they not benefit, and neither do men, but it makes civilization decline. And I think we're seeing a lot of civilization decline with all these wars and these trans openings at the Olympics. Like, people have really lost their way. There is sexual chaos. So I'm going to play the final clip where they do talk about how birth control is really good, yet it has undermined the fundamentals and led to sexual chaos and demotivated men. And I'll end the video with that clip, and then I'll put the entire clip in the description. It's only like 10 minutes long. It's really good. I highly recommend it because our bodies are telling us what is really good for us, you know? And that if a man wants to have sex with us, he should have an equal investment. If you're just hooking up with a guy and just offering him your body for nothing, it's an unequal investment. It's an asymmetrical risk. So that's what you ladies have to be aware of. And that's what you men have to be aware of when you start complaining that women don't want to just have sex with you. Because we're as choosy when it comes to sex as you are when it comes to marriage. By the way, all the guys saying, I will never marry, you're not worth fucking. And all these guys that say, I will never want children, you're not worth fucking, because fucking results in children. If you don't want children, I assume that you don't have any intercourse. If you don't want children, I assume that you're not engaging in unprotected intercourse. If you don't want marriage, I assume that you're not having unprotected intercourse with anyone. Because if you have unprotected intercourse, you're subjecting a woman to asymmetrical risk and unequal investment on your part. And basically, in my opinion, this is not a worthwhile investment. And I think that's what we need to consider as we go forward. Likewise, ladies who are offering their bare vaginas for free to any Tom, Dick, and Harry and doing casual sex are not embodied. In my opinion, not embodied, not listening to their own bodies about what they really need and what they really want. I know I sound kind of mad or lectury on this video, but that's just how I want to come across. They say it a lot better, so we'll let them say it. And thank you so much for watching my video. Now, here's the clip.
And
therefore, of course, birth control changes the analysis.
Radically. It changes it profoundly. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's been a tremendous benefit in women being able to decide how to allocate their efforts and when to produce a family. That has been a major advance of civilization. But it undermined the basic logic that made things work before, which doesn't mean we should go backwards, but it means we should not be surprised that we are living in a world of sexual chaos, because we took away one of the fundamentals and we didn't pay very close attention to all the stuff that was connected to it.
Well, instead of encouraging more men to act like women at their best, it has encouraged more women to act like men at their worst. And encouraging either sex to act like the other sex at their worst is obviously not good for any of us.
So it's impossible to hear your description of the pollinators and the male and female plants and not immediately hear like the most stereotypical patterns of, men and women, especially, in their 20s. Why does that pattern survive into human culture in the 21st century? For all the things that are changing, it still does seem to be the case that, men and women behave differently and that they behave in ways that sure rhyme with the plants you're describing. So why is that?
In part, it's actually the reemergence of a pattern because all of the cultural mechanisms for discouraging it have been removed. And that's, it was never gone, but in essence, for almost all of human history, the danger for women of being stuck with offspring and no help raising them was so profound that women themselves and women's families were incentivized to drive up the costs for men behaving badly. And the problem is that birth control lowered the stakes on sex itself, which then robbed the entire logic from the system of mating and dating, and in many ways the logic of civilization itself, because in the past it was not a simple thing for a man to find a woman willing to reproduce with him. He had to become worthy of that, and that drove men to accomplish many of the things that men accomplished. At the point that the stakes of sex get lowered, then the motivational structure of civilization is now radically altered. And that has not been a benefit for civilization. It has resulted in a lot of frivolous behavior, and it has resulted in a lot of experimenting with turning sex casual, which is not frankly good for almost anybody. It may be fun, but it does not actually serve men or women in the long run. It ends up producing a kind of hollow existence that many discover too late to do much about it.